I purposely waited this long to do a reaction video to the American getting sent to jail inside of Russia because I knew more truths will come out as time went on. He has been showing up on some podcasts. He has been interviewed by other people. So I want to break it down so that you understand what not to do when visiting Russia. Take this young man's life, I guess, tragedy as an example and as a lesson so you don't have to end up in the Russian gulag. Hello and welcome. My name is Daniel. I am actually a veteran who's living inside of Russia, and I have a lot of stories that can kind of relate to this guy. And so with my experience, I'm going to compare it to what he's been through, and we're going to make it to where you don't commit the same mistake. So without further ado, let's go into his clips and let's break this down. Let's see what's actually going on. We're going to be looking at his introduction before he told his full story. Let's look at the first introduction here, guys, because it's very important to see where his mentality is.
Hey, this is a video about how I was arrested in Russia and then sent to prison on a fake crime. This is not a video that I wanted to make. It's not the kind of video I ever want to make. I try to avoid politics on this channel and focus on the people of different countries. But this time, the politics came to me. This ended up being the most frightening experience in my entire life. This happened in a region of Russia called the Jewish Oblast, a region that ironically has almost no Jewish people. But given the history, I wanted to go there and explore. I'll tell this story in two parts, in two different videos. This video will be the vlog that I was trying to make. It's all the events that led up to my arrest. And in the next video, we'll cover the nightmare that happened afterward.
So he's saying quite a few things even in the introduction to his first video. And already I'm going to show you some problems where his stories kind of don't add up, all right? Let's break this down, and I'm going to do it in a way that no one else has done it. Again, I am not saying he's a liar. I'm just going to show you some things that are a little bit sketchy to me, and I'm going to try to explain to you some legalities when you're coming to Russia. Now, I am putting the name of the video here so you can see he made a video talking about I was arrested and detained in far eastern Russia. And this is what he has to say on the first video pertaining this issue. Check it out.
Hey, this is a video about how I was arrested in Russia and then sent to prison on a fake crime.
Okay, there. He says it there.
This is not a video.
He says it there. He was arrested and sent to prison on a fake crime, right? But he also publishes another video here, which you're going to see. The video after it, where he says the full story, how he was imprisoned. Look what he says here.
This was only meant to be a day trip, and then I'd catch a train to Khabarovsk at night. My crime being within 20 kilometers of the border without a permit. This is the only actual crime that I committed, but it's obviously not a very serious one.
All right, so on the first video where he gets everybody's attention, which he posted before the full story, he lets everybody know, hey, by the way, I was arrested on a fake crime and I was sent to prison. But good for him and good on him, he does clarify on the second video that, by the way, there was a real crime, but it wasn't that big of a crime. Right? This is already where he's conflicting his story. Perhaps he was nervous. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Because maybe he doesn't know the rules. Maybe he's just a naive traveler who chose Russia and he's coming here without any idea of what's going on. But already we know that he does have conflicting stories because he contradicts himself. And the first time he does mention he's committed no crime. But on the second video, he does confirm he did break the law. Now let's look further into what law he actually did break. Now we're going to get his idea of, he's going to tell us, you know, this is what happened. I've seen the video already, and this is his story.
According to Russian law, the penalty is simply 500 rubles, or $5.
So the penalty is 500 rubles or $5.
We get fined more for a speeding ticket. I was arrested and taken to the border police office to fill out some paperwork. And the police themselves told me that it was just a fine, and I shouldn't worry. But then the officer received a call from Bijan, once again, the capital of the Jew.
Okay, he's going to continue telling his story, but in that clip, we do get to see his actual charges. So let's translate that and let's see what he's getting charged for, right? So I'm going to be showing you a translation of his citation, and we're going to get to see exactly what it is he did. All that I've done is taken what it says on the screen on his citation. I've put it on Yandex Translate and I've translated it, right? On the video here, I've copied it and I've put it on the translator. And it says, on October 25, 2024, at 16:30 local time, a U.S. citizen, Thomas, was identified by Border Patrol during border control activities in the border zone of Leninsky Municipal District of the EAO in the village of Nizhne at 10 Vilkova Street, territory of the river checkpoint, across the state border without documents for the right of passage entry to the EAO border zone without a passport and a pass to the border zone. It follows from the materials of the administrative offense case that Thomas was identified by the Border Patrol during the verification of the documents for the right to stay in the river zone of the EAO on the legitimate demand of the employees of the Border Guard Services of the FSB of Russia. And please take note, guys, that in the actual document,
Fined more for a speeding ticket.
on the actual document, we do see that this is not the last page, right? It cuts off there, and that is one very important key to this. There was maybe more news behind that, but just know that he was caught within the area that's illegal to go to without an official document. And maybe he didn't know. Maybe he didn't know that he was not supposed to be there, right? But we don't know yet. We don't know if he didn't know he wasn't supposed to be there. But now we understand that not only was he in a place he wasn't supposed to be in, but he didn't have any documentation. I'm going to be doing a quick Google search to know if you should be carrying your passport while traveling outside of the United States, okay? Let's see if we can get some information off the internet in a quick search. And would you look at that? So people also ask, should I always keep my passport when traveling? Yes, it's generally advisable to keep your passport with you while traveling abroad. That is just the first sentence, but I mean, yes, I don't know what he was thinking. You know, maybe he was nervous, maybe he didn't want to carry his passport, maybe he was scared to carry his passport because he's an American, right? I sometimes am scared. If I carry my passport and I'm American, will they treat me differently? Until now, I'm going to validate his fear. I will just say it's fear. But we need to find out whether he knew he shouldn't be there or not. Let's look into it deeper because right now, we don't know what was happening. Yes, because here he is admitting to the whole ordeal, how it's supposed to work. Right, we've already heard his story before, but this is actually him saying what's going on.
So we're almost at Leninskaya, which is a border town with China. And I just asked him, and apparently there's a bridge that you can actually take to get to China. There'd be a passport check and everything. That's not what we're doing. I don't have my passport with me, but...
Well, let's see how it turned out for him. Because he didn't know. He doesn't know. Let's see.
Alright, so after having a run-in with the police, I probably should just go back to Bijan and turn the camera off, but I'm a little OCD with making these videos, and because I have a few screws loose, I'm going to continue on all the way towards the Chinese border to a place called Leninskaya, Lenin Town. Of course, the Russians built a town called Lenin Town, right on the border with China. Yeah, I'll have more to say when we get there.
Nice. So, yeah. He processed it with what's in between his brain, his ears again. He processed it and he decided to continue going anyways. He mentioned he had no passport and he mentioned that he knew that we're going to check different things. I mean, this is just the odyssey of stupidity at this point. Like I mentioned, so it's good to wait for people like who have such stories. It's good to wait so that you can hear them and their thinking process. Now we're going to get the other side of the story from him, why he ended up going there. He's on a podcast here. The title is there. You can look at it however you want. Let's listen to what he has to say here.
Called Leninskoye. And it's got like these big Lenin statues, and it's kind of a shithole, I'm not gonna lie, but it's a town and it's on the Chinese border. My taxi driver suggests fatefully, hey, there's this cool bridge that connects Russia to China. Do you want to go see it? And I mean, I was a little skeptical. I was like, are we allowed to go there? And he said, oh yes, take people there all the time. So we went over there.
They're probably as sex slaves in North Korean underage
So in that part, I mean, they're gonna joke around a little bit.
girls and
Yeah,
who the fuck knows what goes on there?
Yeah, they have weapons.
Who knows? Anyways, that is the moment that he agrees. Okay, the taxi driver offers him, do you want to go? He accepts. He's a little bit skeptical. He says, are we allowed to? Already he's doing this questionable. He's using his brain. He's actually putting it into his what's in between his ears. He's putting it to work. Is it right to go there? He asks the question. Taxi driver says, yes, it is. Probably the taxi driver didn't know. All right, we're still going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say, okay, it was a mistake. The taxi driver who is local doesn't know. This oblivious American who's traveling without his passport doesn't know. And now let's see what happens. Because this is where I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You must have known something. But he admits it himself. Let's take a look. And please pay attention in how his whole story, how he's telling it. I was in the military, and usually when people are lying or don't want to remember the story how it was, they'll touch themselves, they'll move, they'll speak a certain way. I'm not saying he's lying. He doesn't look like he's got his whole story right, okay? But it's nice that he's going to admit to the following.
So we get to this bridge area. It's actually also like a port. There's signs only in Chinese and Russian talking about you need to have like documentation, whatever, blah, 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 which did not register in my head fast enough.
Notice how he says there were signs that were saying you need documentation, but he also says there were signs that says you need documentation, blah, 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 but my brain didn't process it fast enough. That's where we stopped. What is going on with this guy? Why is he traveling without a passport? Why is he going to places where there are signs? There's no way that he got to the last sign. Well, when you're in the United States and you're crossing into Mexico, there is like 1 kilometer away saying, by the way, you're about to get to a danger zone. You need documentation. This is going to be Mexico. How many signs did this guy pass through before he was like, wait a minute, now I'm registering, right? Okay, now let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's a slow guy. He does look a little bit slow. His face looks a little bit beat up. Maybe he took some trauma. I'm not sure. I don't know the guy. He might not be so bright. The signs are there, but he doesn't see them on time. He doesn't process it. Let's see what happens next. All right. And remember, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
So they come up and they explain to me that you're not allowed to be in this area. What are you doing here? Blah, blah, blah. I immediately try to explain I'm a YouTuber. I'm just making a video. And then the problem is one of them had like a body cam on. I mean, in America, the police were forced to wear body cams to make sure they're not doing anything bad. Mm-hmm. In Russia, they were forced to wear body cams to make sure they're doing something bad.
Yeah, so already you see his intentions. Now, in this segment, again, he's telling a story and he's going blah, 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 blah. This is a sign of a person who doesn't have his story right. You can talk to anybody who's probably a professional in this field. If you are always blah, 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 your story's not right. And another thing that I found absolutely interesting is, remember this. This is really important.
It's so they come up and they explain to me that you're not allowed to be in this area. What are you doing here? Blah, blah, blah. I immediately try to explain I'm a YouTuber. I'm just making a video.
He immediately goes on to say he's a YouTuber. Okay? Now look at this.
Hey, how you doing? I'm going to tell you the story of how I was unjustly locked up in Russia as a tourist. For those that don't know me, I'm an American travel vlogger, although that's not how I'd normally introduce myself.
He says he doesn't normally introduce himself as an American travel vlogger. But the first thing he does, and he says it himself, is he tells the cops, I'm an American travel vlogger. He doesn't normally do it, but he does it when he's talking to the police, right, in Russia. Now, also pay attention to how he opens up the most recent video about the topic. He says he was arrested in Russia for a crime he probably didn't commit. Look, check it out.
Hey, how you doing? I'm going to tell you the story of how I was unjustly locked up.
Unjustly locked up. But we've already played parts in this video where he does admit to have committed a crime inside of Russia. And repeatedly, over and over again, we are learning that as this story goes on, he is being reminded you were in a place you weren't supposed to go into. And by the way, it's just, to me, the guy is perhaps a little bit not in his head, right? Because I forgot to mention that he does say this.
I'm an American travel vlogger, although that's not how I'd normally introduce myself. But to the Russian police, that was the only thing that mattered.
That was the only thing that mattered to the Russian police. Well, my friend, if you introduce yourself as an American vlogger, like you said in that other video, then that is exactly what they're going to be thinking about you. Things just are not mathing up here. I am sorry that you came to Russia and had such a bad time. Yes, some people do get in trouble when they do the wrong thing. I just wish that, guys, if you are traveling inside of Russia and you don't read Russian, have a translator. He reads Chinese. He lived in China. He knew better. Even he knew he said that he could read the signs. Hey, this is a no-go zone, right? So this is a lesson that we need to learn. Do not go to places that you're sketchy about if you are not fluent in Russian. You cannot read the warning signs. But let's break down other things, all right? Let's make this a true educational video. Here he is again talking about his charges. This is a very important section because you get to see what is going on in his head, his mentality, his opinion on things, and it's pretty fascinating.
So I immediately get charged with those two things, evading the police or whatever the hell they said, and using the word invasion in my description.
Wow.
Okay, so he says evading the police or whatever, like he shakes it off. He already knows what he got charged with, but now he's saying that he got charged with evading the police, right? We know, we read his charges. He got charged for being in a place where he wasn't supposed to be in without documentations. We know the charges. Another thing is, yes, in Russia, this is not the United States. You can't go around saying things that are illegal. I mean, I don't use the words that he's using because I don't care, right? He says he's not political, but guess what? A lot of his videos are absolutely political. He takes one thing from a country and he exaggerates it to the max. He's a very successful guy. He's a good YouTuber. His channel is really successful. So we have to see now. Let's look at his page. He says he used a certain word and maybe he didn't know about this either, right? we're still going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's look at his channel. And he also mentioned earlier that he doesn't do any political things, yet he used that trigger word that Russia doesn't like, the invasion of Ukraine. I wouldn't use it because I am not looking into that kind of stuff. He certainly is. And we're going to find proof of this in the next portion. The reason why I can't hold back this smile and laughter is because over and over again, he catches himself in his own lies. Oh, he's not political. He doesn't like making videos about politics. But he uses trigger words, right? Because he's a successful YouTuber. This is what he does. It's good for him. I applaud him. But to tell a story that's obviously fake, you know, you were arrested for the crimes you committed. There were not fake crimes. They're just not American crimes, because this is not America. And I feel sorry that you went through that, bro. Like, I wish you would have Googled how to travel. So here we go. We're going to be looking at the titles of his most successful videos. African kid sees a white guy and thinks he's a ghost. Pretty like race baity. I was forced into polygamy in rural Tanzania. Pretty gnarly. I would say that's not normal, but okay. I was kidnapped in the Brazilian slums. Okay, I was kidnapped in the Brazilian slums. Pretty gnarly there. Anyways, the hood in Japan is definitely not what you expect. Does this African kid still think I'm a ghost? He went back. That's pretty cool. This is a pretty interesting one here. I met Nazis who fled to Argentina. Okay. Right. I was chosen as a husband. I had to wrestle for her. We escaped a village from a cannibals in Uganda. So this is not political, but it is pretty baity. Okay, this is pretty baity, guys. I'm not kidding. Like, he's a really good YouTuber, so he knows how to title things. They will shoot you at the checkpoint, trapped in Palestine. So we know he's fascinated by the story. He goes and looks for the story. Again, this is what YouTube is all about. So let's still give him the benefit of the doubt. He traveled to a place, he doesn't know the language, he doesn't know the rules. But this is where, to me, it does get a little bit suspect. This is where it's like, okay, now you're just toying with us. Check it out. This is the part where things get really suspect for me. Listen up and let's discuss, guys.
And then here comes my luggage with souvenirs and stuff from everywhere, from Ireland to China. The CEO told me that they had never had a prisoner like me before. I asked if there had ever been another foreigner in the jail, and they stretched their memory to say there had been one French guy before. Although it's interesting that they would say that. Apparently they were not on duty 2 years ago when that very same city, Bijan, arrested another YouTuber, one that I'm sure you've heard of, called Bald and Bankrupt. He was in the same prison for 2 days in 2022. What a wonderful place, doing wonders for their tourism.
So he knew about Bald and Bankrupt, and Bald and Bankrupt actually, similar charges, similar area. Why then don't you know the rules? If you know Bald's story, why would you say you don't know that you're not allowed near the border? I don't know Bald's story. I think he was even in the same place, looking at the same bridge perhaps. Where in your mind did you decide to tell a story acting like you don't know the rules, acting like you were charged for nothing, right? Like these were false charges. But luckily for everybody who's been watching this video, we got to see you admit to it. We got to see that you actually saw signs, you actually read Chinese. You know, all of these things never added up. So the problem is you're just such a great YouTuber. And to me, I am proud to say that I have yet to gotten in trouble in Russia. And it's not because I'm stroking someone off here. It's because I have something working in between my ears. But I want to know what you think, Sabatical, about people who actually live inside of Russia. And lucky for us, you tell us exactly what you think. This is what you think of us. Your compatriots, other Americans, just like you. This is what you say about us. And this is why I'm so happy that he's been doing the rounds, doing these interviews, because he shows who he is.
Wow.
And
So unless you're like actively making propaganda for them, they're like, oh, that's illegal.
pretty much. Which is why the only Americans you still see in Russia are just complete hacks. Just they've sold their soul. Maybe I like to say, looking at most of them, they probably couldn't get laid in America, and they had to go to Russia to find a woman. Russian women, I mean, they're very beautiful, very welcoming. And then they start doing propaganda to stay in Russia. They probably have no other skills.
Holy shit, man. So
All right, so that is absolutely great of him to say. And I love that part because I'm actually married to a Russian. And he actually commented that in reply to me in one of his videos, saying that I'm in Russia because I couldn't get laid in the United States. But he's the professional YouTuber. He travels to all of these countries. He doesn't seem to have a woman, so he's probably paying for sex somewhere around the world. And now he's saying that we're doing propaganda for these Russians, right? We're your compatriots, bro. Like, we are Americans. We hold the same citizenship. And you say from the look of it how some of us look, we couldn't find women in America, so we come to Russia and decide to do propaganda. Again, what you say there, like the rest of your story doesn't add up. And I'm going to prove it to you why it doesn't add up. 1 second. I'm going to prove it to you. I mean, I'm not the most handsome guy, but this guy right here, he's talking about, he looks at some men, people who are reporting from Russia, and his conclusion is that we have to travel and leave the United States because we can't find women. And he looks like this. I'm not sure what he thinks himself to be, maybe a Greek god or something. But it's another point, another lie that he's telling. He doesn't use what's in between his ears, and his stories never add up, right? This is just back to back to back to back lies. And it's unfortunate because we're both American. We both have our stories here in Russia. He chose to do something that was obviously wrong. Over and over and over again, he commits these mistakes, even though he knows from other people's experiences, which he didn't learn from, and you should learn from this, but he also knew because he saw the writings on the walls and on the signs, and the taxi driver told him there was going to be a checkpoint. He didn't have documentation, and he dug himself in a hole. It was unfortunate that he ended up in jail. There were different charges that they tried to get him with, like he took a drug test. He tested positive. It was a false flag. They tested him again. He got out, right? But he would have never been there if he didn't choose to go to the wrong place at the wrong time under the wrong circumstances. Don't be a dum-dum. You do play dumb games and you get the dumbest of rewards. And it's unfortunate, and I feel bad for him because perhaps he had to go through this just for the views, and he's a successful YouTuber, and I applaud him for that. But he played in the wrong place. Perhaps he doesn't even care about Russia, right? Because he does do these clickbaity titles, and he does go and explore crazy places, but he now had to deal with the Russians, and now he made his video, perhaps kind of squeezing the algorithm dry for one last moment in Russia.